On July 6, 2001, Tracy Bradley kissed her daughters goodbye and left for work. 10-year-old Tionda and 3-year-old Diamond were safe in their Southside Chicago apartment. When Tracy returned hours later, the girls were gone. Only a handwritten note remained. "We went to the store and school." The handwriting was Tionda's. But something was wrong. The girls were too young to leave alone. They knew better than to disobey their mother. What happened next became one of Chicago's largest missing persons searches. Helicopters circled, thousands of volunteers combed parks and alleys. The FBI joined the hunt, but Tionda and Diamond Bradley had vanished without a trace. For 21 years, their family waited for answers. Then in 2022, a woman claimed to be Diamond. The DNA test results would either bring closure or deepen the mystery forever. After 2 decades of silence, what really happened to the Bradley sisters? Before we get into the story, drop a comment with your country and the time right now. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of the Southside Chicago apartment. Tracy Bradley moved quietly through her small home, gathering her work uniform and preparing for another long day. The clock on the kitchen wall read 6:30 a.m. In a few hours, she would be serving customers at the local restaurant, earning money to keep food on the table and a roof over her family's head. She paused at the bedroom doorway where her daughters slept. 10-year-old Tionda lay curled on her side, dark hair spread across her pillow. Her little sister Diamond, just 3 years old, was tucked close beside her. The sight filled Tracy with the familiar mix of love and worry that came with being a single mother in the city. "Tionda," she whispered, gently shaking her older daughter's shoulder. "I'm leaving for work now." Tionda stirred, blinking sleepy eyes. She was mature for her age, responsible and caring toward her little sister. Tracy relied on her more than she wished she had to. "Remember what I told you," Tracy said softly. "Stay inside. Keep the door locked. Don't open it for anyone. I'll be back in a few hours." Tionda nodded, understanding the weight of her mother's instructions. She had heard them many times before. In their neighborhood, children learned early about staying safe. "Take care of Diamond," Tracy added, smoothing her daughter's hair. "I will, Mama." Tracy kissed both girls' foreheads, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door. Her footsteps echoed in the hallway as she made her way toward the elevator. She had no way of knowing that this ordinary morning would be the last time she would see her daughters. The restaurant shift felt longer than usual. Tracy served coffee, took orders, and cleaned tables. But her mind kept drifting to home. She always worried when she had to leave the girls alone. But childcare was expensive and work was necessary. Tionda was responsible. She would keep them safe. When her shift ended at 11 a.m., Tracy hurried home. She climbed the stairs to their apartment, keys already in her hand. The hallway was quiet. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. "Tionda? Diamond?" Silence greeted her. The apartment felt empty, in a way that made her stomach clench with immediate fear. She moved through the small rooms quickly, checking the bedroom, the bathroom, the closets. They were gone. On the kitchen table, a piece of paper caught her attention. Written in Tionda's careful handwriting were the words, "We went to the store and school." Tracy stared at the note, her hands beginning to shake. Tionda knew better than to leave the apartment. They both knew better. She grabbed the phone and began dialing. First her sister, then her mother, then neighbors. "Have you seen the girls? Are they with you?" The answer was always no. With each call, the fear grew stronger. By noon, the hallway outside the Bradley apartment buzzed with activity. Gathered, drawn by Tracy's increasingly frantic calls, Mrs. Johnson from downstairs held Tracy's shaking hands. Mr. Rodriguez was checking the basement storage area. Everyone who lived in the building knew Tionda and Diamond. They were good girls who minded their mother. "When did you last see them?" asked Mrs. Williams, who lived across the hall. "This morning, before I left for work. They were sleeping." Tionda promised to keep Diamond inside. Tracy's voice broke. "She's never disobeyed me like this. Never." Someone had already called the police. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived outside the building. Officers climbed the stairs, their radios crackling with dispatch calls. This was how it began, with frightened neighbors, a mother's terror, and the growing realization that something was very wrong. Detective Sarah Martinez was the first investigator to arrive at the scene. She had worked missing persons cases before, but something about the handwritten note troubled her immediately. She bagged it carefully, studying the neat letters that spelled out such an innocent message. "You're certain this is your daughter's handwriting?" she asked Tracy for the third time. "Yes, Tionda loves to write. She's always leaving me little notes." Tracy wiped her eyes. "But she wouldn't leave the apartment. I told her to stay inside." Detective Martinez walked through the small apartment, noting every detail. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of a struggle. The beds were unmade, as if the children had simply gotten up and walked out. But Tionda's note suggested they had gone somewhere willingly, with someone they trusted. "Mrs. Bradley, I need you to think carefully. Is there anyone the girls might have gone with? A neighbor? A family member? Someone they know and trust?" Tracy shook her head. "Tionda knows not to go anywhere with anyone. And Diamond never leaves Tionda's side. If someone took them..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Within hours, the case had escalated. Detective Martinez called for backup, and soon the building was filled with investigators. The Chicago Police Department was treating this as a possible abduction. Two young girls didn't simply vanish from a locked apartment without leaving a trace. News of the missing Bradley sisters spread quickly through the South Side. By evening, the story had reached local television stations. Tionda and Diamond's school photos appeared on the news, their young faces looking out at viewers across Chicago. Tips began pouring into the police hotline. The next morning brought an unprecedented response. Volunteers arrived at the police station, ready to join the search. Church groups, community organizations, and concerned citizens formed search parties. The Chicago Police Department had never coordinated an operation quite like this one. Helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights sweeping across parks and vacant lots. Police dogs followed scent trails that led nowhere. Teams of volunteers walked through Lincoln Park, checking behind every tree and bush. Others searched the shores of Lake Michigan, hoping not to find what they feared most. The FBI joined the investigation on the third day. Special Agent Robert Chen set up a command post in the police station, coordinating with local detectives and analyzing the evidence. The handwritten note had been sent for forensic analysis. The results confirmed what everyone already knew. It was definitely Tionda's writing. "This tells us something important," Agent Chen explained to Detective Martinez. "If Tionda wrote this note, she believed they were going somewhere legitimate. She thought they would be back. This wasn't a kidnapping in the traditional sense. Someone convinced these children to leave with them." The realization was both encouraging and terrifying. It meant the girls had likely gone willingly with someone they trusted. But it also meant that person had betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. As the search entered its second week, media attention intensified. Tracy found herself facing reporters and cameras, pleading for her daughter's safe return. The questions were relentless and sometimes cruel. Some reporters implied that she had been negligent, leaving her children alone. Others suggested she might know more than she was saying. "I work to support my family," Tracy said during one particularly difficult interview. "Tionda is responsible. She takes good care of her sister. I never imagined." She broke down, unable to continue. The community rallied around the Bradley family. Prayer vigils were held every evening in the park near their apartment building. Hundreds of people gathered, holding candles and singing hymns. Local churches collected money to help with search expenses. Volunteers distributed flyers throughout the city, asking anyone with information to come forward. Tracy attended every vigil, standing in the center of the crowd as voices rose around her. The support was overwhelming, but it couldn't fill the emptiness where her daughters should have been. Every night, she went home to their empty bedroom and tried to find the strength to face another day. As summer turned to fall, the intensive search efforts gradually scaled back. The helicopters stopped circling. The volunteer search parties became smaller and less frequent. Detective Martinez continued working the case, but she had other investigations demanding her attention. The reality was harsh but undeniable. The trail was growing cold. The first anniversary of the disappearance brought renewed media attention. Tianda would have been 11, starting 6th grade. Diamond would have been 4, old enough for preschool. Instead, their absence marked another year of questions without answers. Tracy had never stopped believing her daughters would come home. She kept their bedroom exactly as it had been on July 6, 2001. Their clothes hung in the closet. Their toys remained scattered on the floor. 2 plates stayed set at the kitchen table, waiting for the day they would return. By 2002, the case had officially been designated a cold case. Detective Martinez was promoted to other duties. The files were stored in boxes, marked with case numbers and filing dates. But the investigation never officially closed. The Bradley family made sure of that. Tracy became a fixture at the police station, checking for updates and pressing for new leads. She learned the names of every detective who had worked the case. She memorized the case number and could recite the timeline of events from memory. Her persistence sometimes annoyed investigators, but it also kept her daughters' names from being forgotten. Over the years, false leads continued to surface. In 2003, a teacher in Wisconsin thought she recognized Tianda in her classroom. The police investigation revealed a case of mistaken identity. In 2005, a security camera at a mall in Ohio captured images of 2 children who resembled the Bradley sisters. Again, the lead proved false. Each false alarm followed the same pattern. The phone would ring with news of a possible sighting. Tracy's heart would race with hope. She would drop everything and travel to wherever the girls had allegedly been seen, and each time, the hope would crumble when the children turned out to be someone else. The emotional toll was devastating, but Tracy never stopped responding to potential leads. Her family worried about her health, but she refused to give up. "If there's even a chance it's them, I have to go," she would say. "I have to know for sure." The community never forgot Tianda and Diamond. Every year, on July 6, a memorial service was held in the park. Balloons were released into the sky. Pink for Diamond, purple for Tianda. Their school friends, now growing up without them, attended with their parents. Teachers who had known Tianda shared memories of her love for reading and writing. As the years passed, the memorial services took on a deeper meaning. They became symbols of hope and persistence in the face of unimaginable loss. The Bradley family's refusal to give up inspired others facing similar tragedies. Tracy began speaking at events for missing children, sharing her story, and encouraging other families to never stop fighting. In 2006, the case received renewed attention when cold case detectives decided to re-examine all the evidence. New forensic techniques had been developed since 2001. The handwritten note was reanalyzed, this time using more advanced methods to determine if it contained any hidden clues. The results were frustrating, but not surprising. The note confirmed what investigators had always believed. Tianda had written it willingly, believing she and Diamond would return home soon, but it offered no new insights into who might have convinced the girls to leave or where they might have gone. Detective James Foster, newly assigned to the cold case unit, spent months reviewing every piece of evidence. He re-interviewed family members and neighbors. He studied the timeline of events, looking for any detail that previous investigators might have missed. His conclusion was the same as his predecessors. The girls had likely gone with someone they knew and trusted. "The key to this case is identifying that person," Detective Foster told Tracy during one of their meetings. "Someone in your circle of friends, neighbors, or acquaintances knew more than they revealed. We just have to figure out who." The FBI's involvement continued over the years, though at a reduced level. Special Agent Chen had retired, but his replacement, Agent Lisa Park, maintained the federal case file. The Bureau's resources were valuable for coordinating investigations across state lines when new leads emerged. In 2010, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children updated their missing persons bulletins for Tianda and Diamond. Age-progressed photographs showed what the girls might look like as teenagers. Tianda would have been 19, Diamond, 12. The images were distributed to law enforcement agencies nationwide and posted on missing children websites. Tracy stared at those photographs for hours, trying to recognize her daughters in the computer-generated faces. The pictures showed young women and a preteen who bore resemblances to the children she remembered, but they were strangers too. 9 years had passed. Her babies were growing up somewhere, and she wasn't there to see it. The social media age brought new opportunities and new heartbreak. Facebook pages and Twitter accounts dedicated to finding Tionda and Diamond attracted thousands of followers. People shared the girls' photos and information, spreading their story to audiences the family could never have reached before. But social media also brought hoaxes and false claims. People posted fake sightings for attention. Others claimed to have information they didn't actually possess. Sorting through legitimate leads became even more difficult as the volume of tips increased. Through it all, Tracy maintained her vigil. She never missed a memorial service. She never stopped talking to reporters who were interested in the case. She never stopped believing that someone, somewhere, knew what had happened to her daughters and would eventually come forward with the truth. The 10th anniversary in 2011 brought national media attention once again. CNN featured the Bradley case in a special report about long-term missing children cases. America's Most Wanted aired a segment asking viewers for information. The renewed publicity generated hundreds of new tips, though none led to the breakthrough the family desperately sought. By 2015, Tionda would have been 24 and Diamond 18. They would have been adults, capable of making their own choices about whether to come home. This realization brought a new kind of pain to the family. If the girls were alive and had never tried to contact them, what did that mean? Tracy refused to consider the possibility that her daughters might not want to be found. She believed in her heart that if they were alive, they were being held against their will, or had been convinced that their family didn't want them back. She never stopped hoping for their return. The case received another significant update in 2018, when Detective Maria Santos was assigned to review all cold case files older than 15 years. She brought fresh eyes and new technology to the investigation. DNA evidence that couldn't be processed in 2001 was re-examined using modern techniques. Unfortunately, the evidence was limited. The girls had vanished so completely that there was virtually no physical evidence to analyze. The handwritten note remained the most significant clue, and it had already been studied exhaustively by multiple experts over the years. Detective Santos did find some inconsistencies in witness statements that previous investigators had not fully explored. She spent months re-interviewing neighbors and family members, trying to construct a more detailed timeline of the morning the girls disappeared. Her work was methodical and thorough, but it didn't produce the breakthrough everyone hoped for. As 2020 approached, the Bradley case had become legendary in Chicago law enforcement circles. It was studied in police academies as an example of a challenging missing persons investigation. Young detectives learned about the importance of preserving evidence and maintaining relationships with families over long periods. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021 disrupted many aspects of the investigation. Memorial services had to be canceled or moved online. Detective Santos worked from home, reviewing case files on her computer instead of in the office. The FBI scaled back some of its missing persons activities to focus on pressing national security concerns. But the pandemic also brought unexpected developments. People stuck at home during lockdowns spent more time on social media and true crime websites. The Bradley case gained new followers online. Amateur investigators analyzed every detail of the disappearance, generating theories and sharing information on forums dedicated to unsolved cases. Most of these amateur theories were far-fetched or based on incomplete information. But the renewed interest kept the case in the public eye. New tips trickled into the police department, though none proved significant. In late 2021, as the 20th anniversary of the disappearance approached, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children prepared another update to their missing persons bulletins. New age-progressed photographs showed Tionda as a 30-year-old woman and Diamond as a 23-year-old. These images would be the most sophisticated yet, using advanced computer modeling to account for genetic factors and aging patterns. The updated photographs were scheduled for release in early 2022, as part of a renewed publicity campaign around the case. Law enforcement hoped that showing the sisters as adults might generate new leads from people who had encountered them recently but hadn't recognized them as missing children. Then, in February 2022, something unprecedented happened. A woman contacted the Chicago Police Department, claiming to be Diamond Bradley. She said she had seen her own age-progressed photograph online and recognized herself. She provided details about her early childhood that seemed to match Diamond's background. The woman, who called herself Brittany, said she had been living in North Carolina for most of her life. She claimed to have few memories of her time before age 5, which she attributed to childhood trauma. She said Detective Santos received the call and immediately contacted the Bradley family. Tracy's reaction was a mixture of explosive joy and careful skepticism. She had experienced too many false leads over the years to allow herself complete hope. But this felt different. This woman was claiming to actually be Diamond, not just reporting a sighting. The FBI was brought in to coordinate the investigation. Agent Park arranged for Brittany to provide a DNA sample, which would be compared to samples from the Bradley family. The process would take several weeks, during which the family tried to manage their expectations while secretly planning for their daughter's return. Brittany provided additional details about her life that seemed to support her claim. She said she had always felt like something was missing from her childhood. She had no birth certificate or early medical records. The people she thought were her parents had always been vague about her origins. Media outlets picked up the story quickly. After 21 years, there might finally be an answer to one of Chicago's most enduring mysteries. Reporters camped outside the Bradley family home, waiting for news about the DNA results. The family tried to maintain their normal routines while they waited, but it was impossible. Every phone call might be the one that confirmed their daughter was coming home. Tracy found herself staring at recent photographs of Brittany, trying to see Diamond's features in the adult face. The DNA results were scheduled to be available in mid-March 2022. As the date approached, the family's anticipation became almost unbearable. Detective Santos prepared for either outcome, a joyful reunion or another devastating disappointment. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Detective Santos received the laboratory results and immediately contacted Agent Park. The DNA analysis was conclusive and heartbreaking. Brittany was not related to the Bradley family. She was not Diamond Bradley. Detective Santos had the difficult task of informing the family. She drove to their home personally, preferring to deliver the news in person rather than over the phone. When she knocked on the door, Tracy's face showed that she already knew what the results would be. "She's not Diamond," Detective Santos said gently. "I'm sorry, the DNA doesn't match." Tracy nodded slowly, as if she had been preparing herself for this moment, despite her hopes. She had survived 21 years of disappointment. She would survive this too. The media reported the negative DNA results. But the story quickly faded from the headlines. For reporters, it was just another false lead in a cold case. For the Bradley family, it was another piece of their hearts breaking. But something was different this time. Instead of retreating into private grief, as she had after previous disappointments, Tracy made a decision to become more public about her search for answers. She began scheduling interviews with journalists and podcasters who specialized in cold cases. She started speaking at events for families of missing persons. "I won't stop until I know what happened to my girls," she said during one interview. "Someone out there knows something. I need them to find the courage to tell the truth." The renewed public attention had an unexpected effect. The Chicago Police Department announced that the Bradley case was being assigned additional resources. Detective Santos would have a partner to help with the investigation. The FBI confirmed that the case remained a priority. New age-progressed photographs were released in April 2022, showing Tionda as a 31-year-old and Diamond as a 24-year-old. These images were distributed more widely than any previous updates, appearing on billboards throughout Chicago and being shared millions of times on social media. The publicity campaign generated the largest response in years. Tips poured in from across the country. Most were easily dismissed, but some required serious investigation. Detective Santos and her new partner, Detective Michael Rodriguez, found themselves traveling to multiple states to follow up on potential leads. One tip took them to Atlanta, where a woman thought she recognized Tionda working at a local restaurant. The investigation revealed another case of mistaken identity, but it demonstrated the level of attention the case was receiving. Another lead brought them to California, where someone reported seeing both sisters together at a shopping mall. Security camera footage showed two women who bore a slight resemblance to the age-progressed photographs, but they were quickly identified as local residents, with no connection to the Bradley case. Each false lead was disappointing, but Detective Santos remained optimistic. The level of public engagement was unprecedented. More people were aware of the Bradley case than ever before. If the sisters were alive and living under different identities, someone would eventually recognize them. The summer of 2022 marked 21 years since the disappearance. The annual memorial service drew the largest crowd in years, with over 1,000 people gathering in the park. Tracy spoke to the assembled crowd, thanking them for their continued support and asking them to keep sharing her daughter's photographs. "Every time you share their pictures, you give us hope," she said. "Every conversation you have about Tionda and Diamond brings us closer to finding them. Please don't let their memory fade. Please keep looking for them." The speech was recorded and shared widely on social media, generating even more attention for the case. True crime podcasts featured episodes about the disappearance. YouTube channels created detailed analyses of the evidence. The Bradley sisters became symbols of hope for families dealing with similar tragedies, but the attention also brought challenges. Conspiracy theorists developed elaborate theories about what might have happened. Some accused family members of involvement, despite the lack of evidence. Others suggested cover-ups by law enforcement or government agencies. Detective Santos worked to separate legitimate leads from the noise created by online speculation. She maintained regular contact with the Bradley family, updating them on new developments while protecting them from the more disturbing theories circulating online. As 2022 continued, the investigation took on a different character than it had in previous years. Technology had advanced significantly since 2001. Social media provided new tools for spreading information. Genetic genealogy offered possibilities for identifying unknown individuals. Detective Santos worked with FBI specialists to explore these new approaches. They updated the case file with modern investigative techniques. They created detailed profiles for distribution through law enforcement networks that hadn't existed 20 years earlier. The case also benefited from changes in public awareness about missing persons cases. The success of other cold case investigations had demonstrated that decades-old disappearances could still be solved. Families and investigators had more resources and more reason to hope. In the fall of 2022, Detective Santos received approval to hire a genetic genealogy consultant to assist with the case. While there was limited DNA evidence from the original scene, the consultant would review all the materials to determine if new approaches might yield results. The Bradley family cautiously welcomed these developments while trying not to raise their expectations too high. They had learned to live with uncertainty and disappointment, but they had never learned to stop hoping. Tracy continued her advocacy work, speaking at conferences and workshops for missing persons cases. She had become an expert in navigating the systems that families like hers had to deal with: law enforcement, media, social services, and nonprofit organizations. Her message was always the same: never give up, never stop asking questions, never let the case be forgotten. She had no way of knowing if her daughters were alive or dead, but she knew that silence was the enemy of resolution. The approaching winter brought both sadness and determination. Another Christmas would pass without Tionda and Diamond at the family table. Another New Year would begin with their absence marking time. But the investigation continued with renewed energy and expanded resources. Detective Santos prepared a comprehensive review of the case for presentation to her supervisors and FBI partners. 21 years of evidence, leads, and theories would be analyzed using every modern technique available. If there were answers to be found, she was determined to find them. As 2023 began, the Bradley family faced their 22nd year without answers. But they also faced it with more support, more resources, and more public attention than they had ever received before. The false hope of 2022 had been painful, but it had also reinvigorated the search for truth. The case remained officially open. The Chicago Police Department maintained its commitment to finding answers. The FBI continued its federal involvement. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children kept the sisters' profiles active in their database. Most importantly, the family never stopped believing that somewhere, somehow, the truth would emerge. Tianda and Diamond Bradley had not been forgotten. Their names continued to echo through their community and beyond. Their mother's love continued to fuel the search for answers. On quiet evenings, Tracy still set 2 extra places at her dinner table. The chairs remained empty, but they were never forgotten. They were symbols of hope, faith, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughters. The story of Tianda and Diamond Bradley was far from over. As long as questions remained unanswered, as long as their family continued to seek the truth, as long as their community remembered their names, their story would continue. Somewhere in the silence, answers waited to be discovered. The search for Tianda and Diamond Bradley continued, powered by love that refused to surrender and hope that refused to die. Their faces looked out from billboards and missing person websites, frozen in time as children but imagined as the adults they should have become. In the end, their story was about more than just a mysterious disappearance. It was about the power of persistence, the strength of community, and the refusal to let tragedy have the final word. The Bradley family had turned their pain into purpose, their grief into determination. The empty chairs remained at the table, waiting. The investigation remained open, searching. The community remained committed, remembering. And in the silence that had lasted more than 2 decades, hope remained alive, beating like a heart that refused to stop. Somewhere, the truth waited to be found. Someone knew what had happened on that July morning in 2001. Someone held the key to bringing peace to a family that had waited far too long for answers. The story of Tianda and Diamond Bradley was a testament to love that endures, hope that persists, and the belief that truth, no matter how long buried, will eventually find its way to light.